All right, so let's imagine you're getting ready for the NetSec-Generalist exam, right? What are the things you absolutely need to know?
Well, that's exactly what we're going to be diving into today. We've got practice questions, explanations, real-world scenarios, all to help you really grasp those core cybersecurity principles. We're talking next-generation firewalls, Prisma SD-WAN, even some cloud-delivered security services. You ready to get started?
Absolutely. And remember, this isn't just about memorizing a bunch of facts, it's about understanding the why behind them. So you can actually apply that knowledge in the real world.
Okay, perfect. So let's jump right into that first question. It throws us right into network security, dealing with next-generation firewalls, or NGFWs for short. Specifically, it asks about session lookup during that policy evaluation process, what's actually happening there. So think of an NGFW like a bouncer at a club, right?
Yeah.
The bouncer checks your ID to see if you're on the list, making sure you meet those entry requirements. An NGFW does something similar when a new connection tries to establish itself. It's checking connection details, like the source and destination IP addresses, ports, against its session tables and security policies. If everything matches up, the connection gets the green light. If not, it's blocked.
So it's not just checking one little packet, it's about understanding that whole conversation, that whole session, right?
Exactly. That's what we call stateful tracking. The firewall, it keeps tabs on the entire conversation, monitoring the data flowing back and forth. This allows it to block malicious traffic that might try to, sneak in disguised as part of a legitimate session.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's move on to question 2. This one's all about preventing data loss, a true cybersecurity nightmare. The question focuses on what security profile we'd use when analyzing logs to prevent confidential data from leaving the network. What can you tell us about that?
In this case, the data filtering security profile would be your go-to. Think of it like a security checkpoint for all that outgoing data. It's analyzing that data for sensitive information like personally identifiable information, PII, credit card numbers, company secrets, you name it. If it detects something fishy, it can block that transmission and alert the security team right away.
So it's kind of like a safeguard against those oops moments where someone might accidentally send sensitive information outside the company, but also against those deliberate attempts to steal data, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's protecting against both accidental and malicious data leaks.
Now, question 3 takes us into the world of Prisma SD-WAN. Here we're dealing with a pretty common problem. Poor voice call quality due to jitter and packet loss. The question asks about the first step in troubleshooting this issue. What would you recommend?
Okay, so first, resist that urge to jump right into complex configuration changes. The first step is all about gathering information. Prisma SD-WAN gives you tools to monitor the real-time performance of your network paths. You can actually see what's happening with jitter, latency, and packet loss on those network links. Is there a specific link that's congested? Maybe an issue with your internet service provider? You got to understand the root cause before you can effectively address it.
So it's kind of like detective work, right? Gather the evidence before you start making assumptions about who the culprit is.
Exactly. Now, shifting gears a bit to question 4, let's talk about Panorama. It's a centralized management platform for firewalls. Can you explain why that centralized log aggregation and analysis is so important in a scenario with firewalls spread across, say, different locations?
It seems like that would give you a much better, overall view of your network security, wouldn't it?
It's like having a security command center where you can see the entire battlefield. Instead of trying to sift through individual logs from a dozen different firewalls, you have this unified view. Makes it way easier to spot patterns, identify anything unusual, and respond to incidents effectively.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now for question 5, we're moving into the realm of cloud-delivered security services, or CDSS. The question focuses on how to combat DNS-based threats. So what are these threats and how do we address them?
DNS-based threats are definitely becoming more and more common. Imagine a scenario where an attacker is using DNS tunneling to sneak data out of your network, disguising it as legitimate DNS traffic. It's basically hiding secret messages within what seem like harmless internet address lookups. That's where advanced threat prevention, or ATP, comes in.
Okay, so how does ATP tackle that?
ATP uses a combination of machine learning and signature-based detection to identify and block these malicious DNS requests. Think of it as a super smart DNS filter that can spot those bad guys hiding in plain sight.
That sounds like a pretty critical layer of protection in today's world where, DNS is such a fundamental part of how the internet works.
Absolutely. And CDSS, with that cloud-based approach, it offers a whole range of capabilities to protect against all those online threats out there.
This has been incredibly insightful.
The learning never stops. Stay curious, stay engaged, and always try to stay one step ahead.
That's great advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the NetSec Generalist exam. Until next time, everyone, stay safe and keep those cyber senses sharp.